Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Records and Rants. We got an interesting episode that no one saw coming. I didn't even see it coming, to be honest with you. But to answer for why we're having this episode today is Dixon. How are you?
Nice. How's it going? Getting closer to Valentine's Day. Do I hear? I hear your wedding bells are getting closer.
Wedding bells are getting closer. Yeah, that's right. You know, we don't really celebrate Valentine's Day. I'm sure we've talked about this on the show before. But
Valentine's Day to all those who celebrate.
Yeah, screw everyone stomping on your beliefs. But I don't know. We just do like a dinner at the house or something like that. We don't really, we don't go out. You know, it's kind of funny. I say that we don't celebrate, and then when I say it out loud, it's like we still kind of do celebrate because we're doing something on that day. So, what about you? What about you?
I don't think I've ever had a Valentine's thing ever in my life.
Really?
I don't think that's ever been a thing in reality. Because I show love and respect all year long to my fiance, so it's not really necessary.
You do.
You know what I mean?
I'm sure she appreciates it.
And you also had your big birthday boy recently. Shout out to you.
Yeah.
For
wow.
the birthday.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You know, it's funny. It's funny you say how you give love and affection all year. We were out yesterday celebrating a bunch of birthdays with my fiance and her family. And my fiance goes, "Oh, do you have any extra money for the tip?" Because we were all throwing in for a tip.
Oh, my.
And then her uncle's like, all you need is his love. He doesn't have to give you any money. I'm like, yeah, see, there you go.
That's pretty funny. That's pretty good.
Oh, man.
That's a good one. Yeah, you know what? Hopefully love is enough in this day and age. You know, the way the economy's going, you know how that is. It's love, hopefully, is enough.
Yeah, I know. It's getting pretty rough out there. It's pretty bad. And you know, I don't even know if we talked about this before on the show, but I know we discussed it. BTS is this idea that inflation's just gone, everything's totally fine.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? Groceries are still up like double what they were like 2 years ago, and my salary is not. So
yeah, that's yes. That's the big thing, that wages are not keeping the pace. You're right.
Yeah, and I know that they look at other metrics for inflation other than just groceries, obviously. But I mean, like cars are. I mean, yeah, it's literally a necessity in life, but it's just something that they don't look at. But you know what, Dixon, you're right. Hopefully, love is still enough.
Hopefully, love's enough. Before we dive into our new episode, I wanted to address some of the comments on our new our latest video about one of your ideas to tackle was this concept of Yoko Ono and breaking up the Beatles and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Getting some good feedback, but there's an important factor we did forget to mention, and this guy kind of brings it up. Rick Thomas' son, 1340. Yoko had a mother-like relationship with John. She completely controlled him. This other person, Ivan Connolly, 7332. I don't know how many threes there were. I couldn't read that. Yoko, by not engaging with John's friends or family, intercepting telephone calls, helped isolate John. However, John, by his own admission, made no attempt to keep in touch. Also good points. But John had this really strained or non-existent relationship with his mother. I don't know the exact dynamics. I probably should look this up before I said this. But I believe his aunt was really involved in raising him. And he used to go to this therapy. It was this type of therapy, like he would go into a room and just scream, like a isolated soundproof room. He would like scream.
Scream.
And on the one album, one of his first solo albums, he has a song on there, Mother. And at the end, he's screaming, "Mama, don't go, Daddy, come home." But he's like screaming, and I think that was a carryover from the therapy he was experiencing at that time in his life. And so that's a really interesting facet to this story, is that the mother relationship with John, Yoko's relationship, that it was almost just that female presence that was strong enough that he needed, or sought out, or really maybe kind of ruined him, smothered him. Maybe he was just used to dysfunction in his relationship with females.
Maybe it was. And then the woman that he was with at the time, his wife at the time, I think her name was Cynthia, if I remember correctly, but I guess she just wasn't giving that to him. And I remember in the, you know, the stuff that I was looking up, that he always said that Yoko was different. She was a strong woman that you know, he needed that in his life, he said, or at least his band members thought that he did, and that he was more attracted to something like that. So they're saying that it was kind of like a mommy issue kind of thing.
Yeah, mommy issues big time. Well, he definitely had mommy issues. Like I said, I don't know the extent of it, but it was definitely mommy issues. And then this other guy, this other person, S. Henrel Pock Lookout 5069. George was the one who brought Clapton in to play on While My Guitar Gently Weeps, which I mentioned. I was incorrect on this. The storming out of the studio happened during the Get Back sessions. That's when John suggested bringing in Clapton to replace George. So they were breaking up, and they were still on the verge of breaking up as they were like, okay, this is our last album. We'll bring in somebody else, it sounds like.
Yeah.
This is the best comment we've gotten so far, is this person, Kaleidoscopio 5. John proved that love could not be only blind but also deaf, with a couple laughing emojis, which is so true.
Oh my god, that's fantastic. That's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think Yoko was definitely abusive to a point. I think John just let it happen because he was so into her for just how she was as a woman to him. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I guess we didn't really cover the whole mom aspect of it, but I'm glad that the commenters brought it up.
Yeah, I didn't think about that until I saw those comments, because like I said, I was aware of that, but I wasn't really aware of that. But that's definitely, I think, probably played a factor for sure.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah.
But going back to inflation, we have something to talk about today. It's not really pretty at all. Not really something I'm looking forward to discussing. But we have to go back into our history, the history of our nation, and talk about this dark period that we had in our nation. But really, the effects were felt worldwide. It caused division. It ruined relationships. People took sides. They drew lines in the sand. I'm talking about Edward versus Jacob in the Twilight Saga. And here we are. What were your thoughts on that whole era? Are you familiar with the Edward versus Jacob, Team Edward, Team Jacob? Are you familiar with this at all, Ice?
Yes, I do remember that. I remember Twilight completely taking over everyone. Every girl in America absolutely was in love, inseparable from the Twilight Saga. And yeah, the Edward versus Jacob thing.
Yes,
that was huge. I mean, you could buy toys on that. I think Burger King or McDonald's was selling like the toys and stuff, and you could get like the Edward or the Jacob thing. It was all over. It was like a pandemic. Yeah,
for sure. I remember the T-shirts, Team Edward, Team Jacob, whatever it might be. But have you read? Have you seen Twilight, the films? Are you familiar with do you have a basic understanding of the plot?
I have a basic understanding of the plot. I've never watched the movies fully. I've seen the first one, maybe half of it. Actually, I don't even know if it was half of it. All I remember is Edward putting, what's the girl's name?
Kristen Stewart, Bella.
Yeah, Bella. Edward putting Bella on her back, and they ran through the woods. And he's like, "I have to show you what I really look like," and he's just like glittering. Oh,
yeah,
I laughed at that part. I remember that.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
But the girls that we were talking to in school at the time wanted us to watch that with them. And I think that whoever I was with at the time, I think we just walked outside and started. I can't remember what really happened, but so I've never seen them. I've seen people review them. I've seen people say how bad they are. But
that's interesting.
That's it. That's my complete and utter interaction with these movies.
Gotcha. So the basic plot, you get the idea.
Yeah.
Edward is a vampire. Jacob is a werewolf, and Bella Swan is the emo, sort of just a downer of a girl. And she's obsessed with Edward, is into Edward, loves Edward. Jacob is a kid she grew up with. And he lives on a Native American reservation. He has this power. His clan or his tribe has this power that they can morph into these werewolves. It gets kind of weird towards the end of the series. There's this whole thing where, by the way, this is a spoiler alert. So if you haven't seen this, pause this episode right now, and then go back and watch or read all of them, and then come back to where you left off. But there's this like this weird kind of thing that happens where Jacob does this imprint on Bella's daughter, so then Jacob will then end up marrying Bella's daughter, and before Bella gets pregnant, she's on her deathbed, and she then turns into a vampire, and there's going to be this whole thing because how dare a mortal and a vampire mate to create this superhuman, whatever it might be, that kind of thing. I forget what happens to the child, but yeah,
that's bizarre.
Yeah, it's kind of multi-layered, multifaceted, kind of dark things. And interesting factoid, 50 Shades of Grey was actually supposed to be like Twilight fan fiction. Like that's how it evolved into it.
Really?
Yes, it's interesting. And I'll tell you what, there's moments of the movie that just don't make sense. Like, so Edward is immortal. I think he's like several hundred years. Well, the whole thing doesn't make sense. I should say. I can hear you laughing. I'm like, well, actually,
now that I think about it,
doesn't make sense. There's moments in the movie where are the books of the movie where Edward is, I think, at least 100 years old or several hundred years old, and they all still go to high school. So they're like they have a career, they have a house, they go to high school. Like this is the worst possible existence you could imagine if you were actually could live forever. Yeah,
absolutely.
It's interesting because talking about the immortal thing, going back to our music thing, Jason Isbell has a song called "If We Were Vampires," and basically it's why would I waste my time holding you and loving you, your romantic partner, because if we were vampires, I wouldn't hold your hand. I wouldn't kiss your cheek, those kinds of things, so it's kind of an interesting perspective on it. But what brings us here today is the soundtracks, and I think in particular the New Moon soundtrack for the movie Twilight Saga New Moon. And I think it just may be the best film soundtrack of at least the modern era, the modern age. And I wanted to see what you thought as well. And that's why we're doing this episode, because it's something that we haven't talked about really, something that's totally out of our league. So I figured it might be a good idea to see how we both felt about it.
Yeah, so going into this, a little BTS, you texted me this out of nowhere. I'm like, okay, what should we do for the next episode? I'm like, I did Yoko. Out of ideas now, I guess, because I've been harping on that. It's been in my mind for years. I'm like, I don't know what to do now. So you're like, well, how about the Twilight New Moon soundtrack? I'm like, what?
It's funny you say that because so I read the books. I read the books and I saw the movies.
Mm-hmm.
So going into that as a male, I wasn't say I was opposed to it, but it wasn't like I was diving in like, okay, I got to read this. I got to check this out, right? I feel like it was like several years after like the Twilight's craze was really happening. I'm like, let me check this out. Because I've read Harry Potter, I've read Lord of the Rings. I'm like, let me check this out, see how it goes. So I started Twilight, the first book. And I remember the girl I was dating at the time. I remember reading this book and I'm thinking, if this is what a relationship is supposed to be, Twilight, that you have this hunger for each other, that you're willing to die for the other person, what you and I have, this ain't it. This isn't it. This isn't working. I remember saying that to her. I did. And she's like, well, this is kind of like a book. This is a reality. But, it does have a way of kind of like maybe putting some things in perspective at least. All right, maybe I'm going to make the most. I'm not going to waste my time. I'm going to find somebody I really care about, that kind of thing. I think there could be a positive thing that comes from the whole Twilight aspect. So I was in it. I was consumed the Twilight media, enjoyed it, moved on. And I think in particular, New Moon, I think is the best movie out of all of them, number one. Number two, the soundtrack to me is just perfect.
So, yeah, and it's funny that you say that, how you just came out and you said it's one of the best soundtracks of all time. And I'm going into this and I'm like, okay, I don't really know anything about the Twilight movies. I know people love them and now some people make fun of them and blah, blah, blah. There's always that meme going around. So, better love story than Twilight,
Right.
But I started looking through the soundtrack and I'm looking at the artists on here and I'm like, this is incredible. I see, there's Death Cab for Cutie on there.
Yeah.
There's
right.
Lupe Fiasco. Okay, Go. The Killers are on here.
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, okay, are these just like songs that they pulled? They got the license for them, and they just put them on here. Like, I'm like, this is like too much. There's no way that these are all original, exclusive songs for friggin' Twilight. And guess what? They friggin' are. I'm like, this is incredible.
Crazy. I know. So if it's and so background on New Moon. So New Moon, Bella relocates to the Pacific Northwest, Forks, Washington. The first Twilight, she meets Edward. They become obsessed with each other. They escape the clutches of this other notorious vampire. Jacob's in the mix, kind of just hanging in the back there. And fast forward to New Moon. Edward says to Bella, "It's over. Like I'm moving on. You're never going to see me again. Forget it. It's done." So she's heartbroken, and she loses her friends, and she loses weight, and she's not doing anything. She's just sitting in a room, staring out the window. And there's our buddy Jacob, just kind of slinking around, like, "Oh, hey, what's up?"
Oh, wow.
So they become deeper friends. Their friendship grows. Jacob always wanted to pursue a relationship with Bella, likes Bella. They go to a movie, tries to hold her hand or whatever, that kind of thing. She's not into it. They're best friends, and that's it. Throughout the movie, she finds that when she's in a dangerous situation, her adrenaline gets high. Edward just randomly appears and says, "Don't avoid this." He warns her and that kind of thing. So the relationship between Bella and Jacob grows deeper, and then all of a sudden, Edward's back in the mix, that kind of thing. I actually forget the details of it, to be honest with you. But in my mind, New Moon is the best movie, and one of the reasons why is the soundtrack. And there's a song in particular that really sets it off for me. Is the song "Possibility"?
Oh,
so it's I don't know how you say that artist's name. Likey Key, like Lee,
like Lee,
something like that, like Lee. And the scene in the movie is the breakup is relatively new, and in the book it shows you there's several months where Bella does nothing, and actually the pages in the book, it's like October, and that's all that's on the page. The next chapter is November. There's nothing on the page. They go through these series of months.
That's actually kind of cool. That's actually like pretty decent like storytelling. Actually, it really conveys a lot. Yeah,
it is pretty cool, right? Yeah, that's right. That's why I kind of appreciate it. Mm-hmm. In the movie, she's staring out the window, and the same thing is happening. So you see, she's staring out the window. She's completely depressed. The months are flying by. You could see the seasons outside, and it's the song "It's a Possibility." And then there's this scene where she's crying out in the middle of her sleep, having a nightmare. She can't live without Edward, and it just comes into that. So tell me when you hear my heart stop. And it's like, what? Wow! This is what love is.
You were all into this. Yeah. That's great, though. That's great.
So yeah, but and she tries to email the sister, and she's getting no response. And the other thing that is good too is the song "Rosalind" by Bon Iver and Saint Vincent.
Oh my God, the great you literally. I just want to say, Dixon, you picked out my two favorite songs on this. I wanted to point that out. "Possibility" and Bon Iver and Saint Vincent, "Rosalind." These, I mean, just the music. It's so emotional. The soundscapes that they create with this. It's like I wrote down bone chilling, but I don't even know if that's the right thing for it. It's more. It just like it makes you swell like inside, kind of when you hear this stuff come in. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just thought that was funny how you picked out my two favorite songs on this.
No, yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad you could see the value in this.
Yeah,
yeah, I'm glad. So Bon Iver is this guy. Heck's his name? Hold on, stand by. I just had it up.
Okay, so that I was pronouncing it wrong. I said Bon Iver, right?
Yeah,
that's else.
What you would think. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, Bon Iver is Justin Vernon. So Bon Iver means good winter, and Justin Vernon's from the Midwest. And the first album that came out by Bon Iver is recorded in his father's hunting cabin, and he releases the album independently, and it got picked up. But I was a big Bon Iver fan. I was a part of the Sad Boy Club, so I guess this kind of fits into my MO.
Oh yeah.
But there's a thing I describe as Bon Iver weather, and it's winter, it's chilly, maybe the sun's out, maybe it's just kind of gray. There's fresh fallen snow. It's Bon Iver weather. It makes you feel like, okay, if I put this on, I know that outside it's. I'm not listeing to it on the 4th of July, I guess is the bottom line.
Yes, that's a really good way. Yeah, absolutely.
So it's literally titled "Good Winter," but for me, it really encapsulates the idea of like a winter day, winter's chill, and to me, he totally lines up with that in this song because, like you said, it has that chill, it has that vibe, but the soundscapes create this sort of like visual. You know what I mean? Like you visualize what this would go to. I think that's why. Not that other films don't do this, but I think New Moon does this especially well, is that what is happening on screen is totally translated through the song and to the song. And that's what if you're ever going to watch a movie and you're like, okay, I don't give a shit about anything about this, put on New Moon and just see how it works with the soundtrack, because I think you'll appreciate that.
I would love to see that, because as I'm listening to this, I'm like, okay, these are obviously eliciting some kind of emotion, and I could see how they would fit into a Twilight movie from the little idea that I have of it, and it made me want to watch the movie. I'm like, okay, I want to see how this like fits into a certain scene. So, Dixie, let me ask you this: is every single song on here, are they all featured within the movie, or are there some in here that are just on here because they asked someone to be on the soundtrack?
I'm sometimes the visuals are just too much for you to focus on the music. but I think the majority of these are on there. I know that a Death Cab song I think is on the credits.
Okay.
And Death Cab had a vision. They're like, okay, this is about the tying of the equinox, the solar, the what's the word? The astrology, sort of that thing, kind of the thread it puts throughout the series. It's kind of their inspiration for that song.
Okay.
But the moments, like I said, that stood out is for me were Rosalind, and then for Possibility. But there's a song on the original movie Twilight, and it's called. Wait, stand by.
Sure.
It is called. I had my notes pulled up now. So Eyes on Fire. There's a song.
This is on the original one, right? This isn't on the New Moon. Okay.
No, this is the original one. And I for whatever reason I was thinking maybe it was false hope, but I was thinking this was on the New Moon soundtrack. It's called Eyes on Fire by Blue Foundation, and it's actually been making the rounds on TikTok for like the last couple months, because it's finally the one lyrics is just it's with this real dramatic like female voice with this like pretty heavy bass line, and you probably have heard it if you would actually listen to it. And there's like, oh, it's finally weather, because once again this is translated through the weather, some of these songs, but I think is kind of cool. But it's the original Twilight. The coloring, the visuals are sort of this blue gray kind of steel, like foggy day, and that song fits perfectly into that weather, just like Bon Iver's song fits into the coloring of New Moon, which is sort of like this amber glow where you see she's getting closer to the idea of the werewolf, the color of Jacob's coat when he turns into a werewolf. So it's kind of interesting. I don't know. I think it's well done for being like just garbage storytelling,
Yeah, it seems like the more you talk about it seems like there's more here than just like nonsense, I guess, kind of stuff.
Yeah, right. Because that's what's so surprising about it.
Yeah, I know. Because that's how people talk about it. I feel like a lot of people just kind of write it off. But I mean, even if you just look at the soundtrack, if they put like a fraction of the effort into directing this movie and producing this movie, and even just making the story as they did into this soundtrack, I mean, it's probably fantastic, because the love that you could tell that they put into the soundtrack is pretty impressive. And Dixon, I got to ask you another question here. Were the entire Twilight saga written before they were made into movies? Do we know that?
Yeah, the books came out, and then
movies came out. Yeah, I don't know if it was like the first one, and then they were like, okay, we got to adapt this into a movie, and you got to write the rest of it. But
Yeah,
Okay,
no, yeah, they came out.
that's still pretty interesting though.
It is. I think that, like I said, I think that Twilight kind of hit its peak. I think the next one after this is Eclipse. After New Moon is Eclipse,
Yeah.
and I think peak Twilight was after New Moon. Like, to me, you could, and I guess I'm saying this from a nonsense standpoint. Like, if you just want a vampire love story, then yeah, great, continue on.
Mhm.
But the storytelling and the dynamics in Twilight and New Moon, I think, are they're just good. I think they're good, and if you could separate those two from the rest, I think just the normal person can enjoy those.
That's
And
that's
like I said, not be bogged down by nonsense, like you said.
yeah, and that's pretty interesting. And I think, I mean, these movies were originally like, they were, like young adult novels. So
Sure, yeah,
it's not for some person who's like some Harvard grad to like dissect these movies and like dissect the story
exactly.
of them. Like, they worked. There's a reason they were popular, because they were good books for young adults, and that's
Yeah.
that's like the long and short of it. But yeah, I feel like speaking of young adults, I feel like these songs were like curtailed specifically for someone going through that moment in their life. It's
Right.
kind of like a very emotional, like you said, you were going through your sad boy phase during this time.
I'm always in a sad boy phase.
I know,
I've been in a sad
I know.
boy phase for 15 years of my adult life, and it's always been a sad boy era. No, like I said, man, that's why I appreciate that, because I like Death Cab. I like, obviously like the National. If you haven't been paying attention,
Oh yeah, and I got a lot of National. I was listening to it while I was listening. I'm like, this is like the National vibes, but better for me, at least.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. That's a positive thing.
Mhm.
And so you, but like you said, if you're just looking at the soundtrack and you take it at face value, pretty interesting lineup of artists and stuff that's on there.
Oh
What
my
I
god,
think
yeah.
is cool is, like, once again, you could separate something from this. Okay, it doesn't have to be, oh, I'm into the vampire thing. I think it's a good soundtrack. I think this is a good album overall, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I totally agree, and that's what I wanted to point out too. Even if you, even listening to this one, I said, okay, I could see this fitting into the Twilight, but even if it was totally separated, like you said, I still think these artists, I feel, put like 100% into this. I don't think this was just some kind of, hey, we're getting a royalty for making something for this Twilight movie. Let's crap something out. Let's just get something out there. I think I think they went in, they had a purpose, and I think they made something that actually sounds really good. Like I said, when I heard like Lee, I'm butchering her name, but that song that she made, Possibility.
I think that makes sense. I think like Lee would make sense, because like it
Okay.
sounds like likely. I think that would probably be it. 'Cause
Okay.
I have no idea who that person is aside from this song.
Yeah. I looked her up. She's Swedish, actually.
I was gonna say probably a Swedish vibe.
Yeah.
I got an immediate Swedish vibe. I don't know why.
There you go. You were spot on. But I mean, just like I said, like you can't make a song like that without actually trying, and it's fantastic. My favorite song on there. Even
Sure,
Satellite
absolutely.
Heart. I like that one too, by
That's a good
Anya
song.
Marina. Yeah, just a lot of good stuff. And like you said, I could listen to this by itself, totally separated from Twilight.
Right, exactly. You know,
Mhm.
and it's funny because you mentioned the Killers. The Killer song is good too. What has happened to the Killers? Are they still around?
I don't even I don't know. That's a good question. Do they still even tour?
I haven't seen anything from the Killers in a minute. I mean, you had Hot Fuss, and then you had the other one after that. I think it's Sam's Town. But after that, I feel like I haven't heard about the Killers in a minute.
It looks like they're touring in the UK.
Wow, they're still around.
Yeah, Killers is currently touring across one country and only five upcoming concerts. So it looks like they're winding down. I remember I saw them at that music festival. Remember that music festival I went to?
Oh yeah,
I remember seeing them there, and I should have really appreciated music more back then, because I should have been like, oh my god, wow, I'm seeing the Killers, like,
yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it was neat. But yeah, I guess they're still around. But they haven't put out like any new albums or anything, have they?
Looks like, wait, I'm just gonna browse over to the Wikipedia. It looks like the last album they put out was actually in 2021. Pressure Machine.
Really?
I don't. Yeah.
That totally went under my
Oh, it's a concept album based on Brandon Flowers' childhood in Nephi, Utah. Interesting. Oh, and Phoebe Bridgers is on the track. Oh yeah, so oh man, this sounds like it's pretty good. This sounds like a pretty good. We might have to check this out. I'm gonna put this on the list.
Maybe,
but anyway,
maybe we should. Yeah.
speaking of tours,
yeah.
Want a quick update on our favorite artist, Morissey?
Yes, I would love that. You know, I'm always down for some Morrissey lore here. Let's hear it.
so Morrissey is currently touring. He's actually on the West Coast. He was in Los Angeles. And I guess his previous stop in Los Angeles, either whenever it was, whatever venue he was at, he played 9 songs and then walked off the stage and didn't come back. And the rumor is that he was chilly or he was cold, so he stopped the rest of the tour of the show, walked off, and then didn't refund anything, didn't do anything, for the patrons' money, just ended the show after 9 songs. So, yeah, so what an asshole, total.
What the hell?
So he was going to return to Los Angeles, or he's there now or doing something, but he plans to go to these like mini arenas, the Honda Center and then the Kia Forum. And they both seat like 18,000 people, but they're 30 miles apart. So it's not like I'm going to drive to see one. Like I could go to either one of those shows. So they're a little close together. Mm-hmm. So I guess the tickets when they first came out, they were like in the hundreds. Like they were pretty gouged pretty high. Then I guess last week or the week before, they were doing these tickets. They were on special for $39, which is insane.
Yeah.
Turns out the ticket sales were very low, and they ended up canceling both shows due to low ticket sales.
What? Are you kidding me?
Yeah. So I guess it goes back to the time he boned the Los Angeles fans with the performance he did previously when he walked off after 9 songs, and they were there for like 40 minutes.
Wow,
that's what a lot of the comments I'm seeing are. So it's pretty interesting stuff, and you're just talking about inflation.
Yeah.
This might be a sign of the times. Coachella, they announced their lineup a few weeks ago. Coachella is currently experiencing the lowest ticket sales in 10 years. So this might be an indication of where the economy's headed. If the West Coast elite don't want to spend money to go to a Coachella,
That's actually shocking to me. That is incredible. Wow. Lowest in 10 years. I mean, I could totally believe it though. You say that and it's like, yeah, because people just don't really have the expendable income that they used to.
Yes, for sure.
Unfortunately.
It's true. And that goes back to the other issue is that I guess Trump did a rally somewhere and he played a Smiths song. How does Trump even know about the Smiths?
Like, seriously.
Even on his radar. There's no way that Trump listens to the Smiths. No way.
Can you imagine?
So once again, Morrissey, how we talked about how Morrissey might be a little bit radical.
Mm-hmm.
Totally anti-Trump, totally anti-Trump. I guess he mentioned K-ing Trump.
Oh, God.
And Johnny Marr from the guitarist said, this has got to stop right now, F off, bollocks, whatever the British say, and said, stop using our music. So I don't know. To be determined if Trump's going to still use the Smiths or not. So, yes. We always said it. Morrissey does his own thing. It doesn't matter what you do.
Yeah, no, he does, because I thought that he was more like right wing, and I thought that's why people hated him. I thought he would love Trump.
That's what I would think, too, because like Morrissey's very much like a nationalist when it comes to the UK.
Yeah,
I think so it's interesting.
Yeah, that is very interesting. I'm surprised he doesn't like find Trump, like redeeming in that quality, that like kind of nationalist, like America first kind of attitude. I figured he would more appreciate what he does over here and wish that he had that in his home country. But I guess not. Like we were saying. You think Morrissey's going to go one way and then he goes another. Pretty interesting character. And, I was just looking up here. Did you hear this? This was just posted 1 hour ago. Morrissey treated for physical exhaustion after canceling tour dates.
Really? Okay, interesting. Physical exhaustion. Huh.
Yeah. Singer told to rest for 2 weeks, forcing him to cancel gigs in California.
Wow. Well, it could be that, or it could be that nobody's even going to see Morissey.
I think I think that's more what I think. The manager said, "Okay, we gotta think of something here." So what if your tickets aren't selling? We're gonna say it's because you canceled them because of physical exhaustion.
That's crazy. Well, get well soon, Morissey.
Yeah. That's the case. Yeah, get your ass together, Morissey.
Get your stuff together. So you're exposed to a new world, a new universe, the Twilight universe.
Yeah, thank you, I guess, for that.
I guess maybe you should try to see if you would be on Team Edward or Team Jacob.
Oh, oh my God! I feel like this was the debate. Any school you went into, girls would pick one side or the other. I feel it was a lot of when this came out with the New Moon thing, when he was introduced, that was like, I think that like amped it up even more.
Yeah,
as far as popularity goes, but
no, for sure. And I'll tell you right now. Can I just tell you right now? I'm taking a hard stand, and I will.
Okay. Team
Jacob.
Wow. No, why is that? What's your reasoning?
Jacob. Now, so there's two ways to look at this.
You really thought about this.
There's two ways to look at this mother effing Twilight. You can make the argument that Edward really I can't even get through. Edward really cares about Bella. That's why he had to leave her. So he is willing to sacrifice his love and his physical connectedness to Bella to, in his words, protect her from any bad stuff she might come across in that vampire universe. And she's immortal. He doesn't want to get involved in that whole thing. I can't blame him. With that being said, the only man that's been there for her this whole time is Jacob. Jacob was there. Jacob loves Bella, into Bella, and I think that Bella can really be herself around Jacob. And I don't think she can do that against Edward. She can. She is who she is, but I feel like there's a guardedness to Bella, and she can let down that wall when she's around Jacob, and that's why I think I'm Team Jacob.
Okay.
And it has nothing to do with the soundtrack of New Moon when you see really Jacob come into this. Like I said, I do think this is one of the best soundtracks of the modern era, maybe of all time, possibly of all time.
Yeah, I think it is. It's definitely fantastic. It is very, very good. And Dixon, it was another one of those surprises that you so frequently bring to me, where you're like, okay, listen to this. And I have no idea who the hell it is or who the artist is or whatever. And I end up really enjoying it. And that was definitely the case with New Moon Soundtrack. And I would agree with you. It probably is one of the better soundtracks, possibly one of the best that we've ever gotten.
I think you're right. I think we should check out more of these soundtracks. There's a couple that come to mind as far as being up there. Because that the soundtrack, okay, either it's a score or it's, like I said, garbage stuff that they just kind of pull from everything. But Twilight, this New Moon is an anomaly. I think it's quality music. I really do, and that's why I wanted to share it with you. Any other thoughts on what you after you listened to it and kind of checked it out?
I think just overall, I'm really impressed that the production team of Twilight got this many artists together, and again, I think they really gave it 100% when they were making every single one on here. It's high quality. I didn't find a song that I didn't like.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, I think especially some of the female talent on here, I think they did a really, really good job.
For sure.
Especially the song Possibility, favorite song there.
It's an excellent song.
And like I said, as one final thought, I think in some weird way, this did make me interested in like, okay, well, how does this fit into the whole Twilight thing? So pretty interesting.
But I'm glad, and I think it's more accessible than say like the Harry Potter soundtrack. Like I don't think Harry Potter's just the score. It actually reminds me of a story. Do you remember our old buddy from college? this is pretty funny. So I remember.
Okay, let's hear.
It's actually pretty violent. This is a worthwhile soundtrack story. So, walking back to your home after going to the bars one night, and got a text from our old buddy.
Yep.
Roommate, and
I
said, "Yo."
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And, he goes, "Yo, the girls are here. Come on back." And this is probably 2:30 in the morning.
Yes.
Maybe it might have been earlier because I don't feel like we ever did a 4. This could have been earlier. Maybe it was 2:30.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, we weren't out. We weren't out 4 in the morning or anything. Yeah, it was probably around 2 a.m.
Yeah, we never really did that. So he's like, "Yo, the girls are here," and somehow we were separated. Everybody was doing their separate thing. I was by myself walking home. You were somewhere, and he was back at the place.
Yeah,
and so I'm walking up. He had that entranceway, and I'm walking towards the front door, and there's 2 girls walking towards me, leaving, and I'm like, "Okay, well, this
not
is
a good sign."
So, not a good sign. Not a good sign. And so I walk in, and. Yeah, our buddy sitting there in a chair with a beer in his hand, and it's the Harry Potter soundtrack just blasting in the house. And he's sitting there by himself listening to the Harry Potter, particularly the opening theme from Harry Potter.
Just sitting there.
Sitting there. Soundtrack. So maybe that is something. Maybe the Harry Potter soundtrack is something you want to listen to.
Oh man, that is funny. That is, I remember that. As you were telling it, I remembered it. That was hilarious.
That was pretty good. So yeah, so hey, maybe if you put on the New Moon Soundtrack, they would have stuck around.
Honestly, they might have. I probably would have sparked a conversation. Oh my God, I was Team Jacob in high school. Whatever. I was Team Jacob or Team Edward. That probably would have sparked a conversation right there.
Yeah, you're probably right. There you go. See, so if you want, there's the code. We might have figured out women.
Yep, right there.
First question: Team Edward, Team Jacob. There you go. Go from there.
That is some sound advice. But before we go, Kanye, just a quick Kanye update to everyone.
Yes.
February 9th is allegedly, we don't know because Kanye does whatever he does his own thing, but Vultures is possibly coming out February 9th, that Friday. We don't know for sure. He posted something on his Instagram Reels or whatever it was, or his Instagram story, and he had dates. And we are planning on doing an episode. I don't know, Dixon, what do you think? That day or the day after, maybe that Friday or Saturday? Yeah,
I feel like we got to get immediate reaction because this is
big.
You've been monitoring this for a while. You've been keeping tabs on this, and I know you said about there's possibly multiple editions or versions or volumes.
3 volumes.
Along with Vultures.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying that one of them might be remixes because I think that's what did he say that or something?
That's what people. I don't know if he said that outright, but I've heard people talking about it, and they say that the volume 2 and 3 are possibly just remixes of the existing original songs on volume 1.
Okay.
So gotcha. I don't know if it's going to be like a 3-parter or I mean that would be interesting, but kind of annoying. But
for sure.
Yeah, we'll see because I actually have an interesting take on Kanye to begin with because I re-listened to some of his stuff, and some of his stuff I really love, and some of his later stuff I just don't at all. And I almost have a visceral reaction of really not enjoying it. So I'm curious to see how we're going to react to this one, but I think it'll be a big one.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think it's funny you said that because I was just listening, or something came across somewhere. I was listening to some old Kanye stuff. It's amazing how accessible and how radio driven his older stuff was, and how he evolved into this avant-garde it's just such a weird progression. And it's this will be, like you said, I think we mentioned this last week, is that this will be interesting because this is his first album post total meltdown, total
yes, exactly,
anti-Semitic spiral downward. So it'll be interesting to see how it's received, how it sounds, and I don't know. Yeah, it'll be interesting because, like I said, I'm glad you're monitoring this because this is a big step in the whole industry because he's been such a fixture. He's been around.
Yeah. it is going to be interesting. How do you go from the biggest rapper and have that huge cancellation, and then how do you come back from that? Is it going to be good? Is it going to be well received? I guess we're going to find out.
Yeah, that's one of those things you got to listen to the whole thing. You can't.
Oh yeah.
You can't just skip around.
Yeah, especially with Kanye's, like you said, how he went to avant-garde. I feel like his albums are more cohesive, as in, I feel like he probably is trying to send a message with everything.
Yeah.
And everything in the album probably matters. So yeah, it's gonna be something.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. If he would just like shut the F up.
Yeah,
I think he would be like really good. I think like some of these albums would be really good.
I think so too. Yeah. That'd be amazing, actually.
Yeah, I guess we'll see how it goes. Hey, look out. Look to the sky tonight. See how the moon looks, and see if it's a new moon or if it's an old moon. But either way, now you have some new music to maybe put into your rotation, and maybe you'll become a Twilight boy after all. Who knows?
Yeah, guys. Yeah, seriously, let us know in the comments. Were you Team Edward, Team Jacob? What were you? Do you guys like this album? A lot of people online, I was looking at the comments, a lot of people online actually say this is one of the best albums. A lot of people agree with you, Dixon. So,
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
For an effing change for once.
Yeah. Finally, someone agrees.
Finally, somebody agrees. All I do is get blowback on this show.
I've never once have I given blowback.
Well, I don't know. It's amazing because we keep covering stuff I suggest. Maybe we should go in a totally opposite direction. This might be the first. This might be the first winner. That you enjoy. This
was. I really did enjoy it, but. We'll have to think of something for next week. Maybe another recommendation, or maybe we'll go off the deep end and maybe I could suggest some garbage, but I don't know how well that would go over. There was some, you know what I think, and I think I figured out the code to you. I think you listen to I think you listen to some pretty experimental stuff. Would you agree? You listen to some pretty cutting edge experimental things. So, I think
that's kind of your summary. I think.
Yeah, I guess sometimes I do. Sometimes I get into these niches that I don't even mean to. It's just I somehow get into them. And it all starts from that friggin' lo-fi. And then I go down and I'm like, oh, let me listen to vaporwave. Oh, let me listen to this subgenre of vaporwave. And then it gets into like crazy stuff. And I find something I enjoy, and then there you go.
Yeah, because I think that might be the issue with the National and stuff like this that you listen to, which you actually enjoyed. But I think it might be too literal for you. That there's like
maybe
this is where it is, and this is where we're starting, and this is where it ends, and that's kind of it. Like whereas lo-fi stuff might be like not as accessible, and that's intrigues you, and also that it's open ended. I mean, that could be it.
It definitely does. I'm not trying to sound pretentious with this either. It just. I guess just where my mind goes sometimes. I just like, I'm just like, okay, this sounds cool. Let me dive into this and look into it. But yeah, it could be, Dixon. You might be onto something.
Yeah. All right. Hey, you know what? It is what it is. Some of the greatest albums of all time you did. Like you really liked Dark Side of the Moon. You really liked that album.
That was super enjoyable. I love that. Yeah.
So that's pretty experimental.
Yeah, I guess it is. It is experimental.
and then when you think about it, wow, the full circle to the end of the episode. You did Dark Side of Oz again alongside Wizard of Oz and Dark Side of the Moon, and there's those scenes that just seem like it's perfectly written for that movie. Of course, it wasn't, but it was like the ticking clocks and everything else, and it lines up. Maybe this is the key.
Wow.
Film and music together, and that works for you.
Yeah, I could absolutely see that.
Well, very good. Well, thanks for playing along, Ice. I really appreciate it. Thanks for
no problem. I appreciate it. So, guys, new episodes every week. Y'all know it. So join us next week for another episode of Records and Rants. My name is Ice, signing out with Dixon.
Peace.